Good.
How about back there? Okay. So I'm going to let Waleed tell you about the history of Caesarea, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go in and I'll give you the spiritual aspect of it. You know, Waleed has an amazing amount of knowledge on the history. And sometimes you can get lost in the history, but you really need to listen to it a little bit anyway, because that history gives you a pretty good understanding of it. Basically, before Waleed starts, and I take you in, I want to orient you to where you are. This is Caesarea Maritima, as Waleed was telling you. It's Caesar by the sea. This is a Roman city. When I first came here, much of it was not uncovered. This is the theater. It's right there. We'll go in there and get that song ready. I'll show you some of the acoustics, while they never needed any type of electronics. Wish we had it today. And we'll talk about Herod's palace. He will show you that. We'll actually go see this later on. So we're going to go through here. We're going to go down towards Herod's palace, and this is the hippodrome. Hippa is the Greek name for horses. So if you know somebody who's named Philip, that's a lover of horses. So the hippodrome is here, and we'll tell you exactly how they made those horses race and what they did. And then this is another city that comes over to the side. We won't walk through that city. It has a major cardo in it and a secondary part of it. But what we'll do is we'll show you all of this. Waleed will tell you the history of it. He'll tell you about the aqueduct that brings water to here, and we'll go see that. After here, we'll actually go on the bus and we'll see the aqueduct, and you can go in the area of it, take some pictures. Great spot to take pictures. So once we get all the way through, we'll have to stay a little bit together. After Waleed talks, I'll take you to this entrance here. You'll sit up in the theater, and then I'll tell you a little bit, and then we'll sing a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit about the area. Then we'll go down, and we'll go over to the to Herod's palace with the swimming pool right by the sea. This is a harbor he made. It's an unnatural harbor because the west coast did not have a harbor. And when Waleed told you that Herod the Great was great, he was absolutely right. He was great because of his building projects. You'll see it all over Israel. But the thing is, and Waleed will probably tell you this, the silt came up from the Nile, one of the only rivers that flows north from Egypt. And so it blocked up all this area. So Herod the Great came in. It's not a small project. This is a major feat. I mean, to build all this, he used basalt stone. And I heard something, as a matter of fact, we've been talking about this last time, a couple times we came. The Romans invented cement. We still don't know. I just heard this on NPR the other day. We still don't know some of the ways that they were using the cement. Some people think that they used egg yolks that put in it. That's an awful lot of egg yolks. But we got all of our, everything we have is from the Romans when it comes to roads and cement. Waleed told you about Pontius Pilate, they found a mile marker. When you go down interstate and you look at mile markers, that's a Roman construct. They were the first ones to put mile markers. They also banked their roads so that the water would come off on the sides. They'd put 3 layers on it. That was, we still do that today. So the Romans were amazing engineers. And so you'll see some of the engineering through the aqueduct. I don't want to take too much time away from Waleed because I'll go in here later and give you some of the spiritual aspects of it.
You can keep that here. Okay, well, this is just a model of Caesarea by the sea. Caesarea Maritima, because all that area is the sea. First, this Herod, we said that he was a very ambitious guy. He wanted to build something in order to motivate the economy of this part of the world for the Romans, as the country fell to Rome in the year 63 BC under Pompey. So first of all, he had to build something in order to compete with a port that was where I'm standing in Joppa. There was another port up north. So this area is in between Joppa to the south and Acco or Ptolemy to the north. What did he do? But look at the straight shoreline. Is that good for a port? The answer is definitely no. He had to build some artificial port, right?
Right.
So what did he do? Like Pastor says, we don't. It's a secret, you know, how they were able to, produce or to make cement. He brought volcanic ashes from Italy that were called the pozzolane, and he mixed those with gravel and sediment here, and he built wooden frames like these. Look at these, something like that, you know.
Yep.
I'm trying to show you the frames,
Yep.
and one on top of another. He dropped those in the sea, but he filled them with rocks like those, because the coastal plain is very rich in what is called sandstone. In order to keep sandstone standing one on top of the other, you know, even in wavy times. He dropped all this mixture of the volcanic ashes with the sediment here. The minute that substance touched the water, it hardened, and that made it like cement. And one frame upon another, he was able to build the breakwater. Look at this.
It's huge.
And look, and the port, he built it in two parts. This was the outer port. Everybody would come. Everybody was allowed to come in here and dock. If he had no business here, look at this one. This little port was called the inner port. It was when you had goods, you wanted to leave them in the warehouses that you know were abundant here, that you would dock here. And if you wanted to, you know, take something, fill your boat, and leave, then you could do that. But I want you to know that the entrance to the port was facing north. From the north, we always have that gentle breeze coming in here. But now the question is, why didn't he build the entrance to the port here? Because here, where we are, the river Nile comes from Africa here. And it brings with it hundreds of thousands of tons of sediments every year. In that case, the port would fill with sediment within a few years, and nobody could use it, right?
That's right.
And I can promise you one thing. I was a kid growing up when Nasser, have you heard of Nasser, the president of Egypt, when he built the high dam in Aswan, somewhere here in the southern border of Egypt, between Egypt and Sudan. Before that, we had more fish on our shores, and we had more sand because of the violent rush of the River Nile into the sea. So, like Pastor says, it is here. Look, this was the Roman wall around what Herod the Great built, and here this is the Byzantine wall when the city witnessed its biggest expansion, and there was more than 100,000 people living here in the Byzantine period, the same size of Herodian Jerusalem, and that explains its being a capital.
1st century, 6th to 8th century, probably.
Yes. There's this. No, we can move because I finished my.
Yeah, we're good.
So let's move on.
A theater is only half. An amphitheater is a full one of these. Now, one of the things about the acoustics here is that if you're down there on the stage, and we'll have someone go down there and sing for us if we can have some time. When you're down there in the stage, this is facing the sea. So how did Jesus speak to 5,000 people or 10,000 people? He did the exact same thing. He had the sea at his back. So what happens is the air and the wind that comes up will come from the sea, and it'll raise up towards a spot that's either a natural amphitheater. When you go later tomorrow and the next day, you'll see the Church of the Beatitudes, and you'll see the Sermon on the Mount. And I'll show you where Jesus was. Most people put him on top of the mountain. He wasn't. He was on the bottom of the mountain because it's by the Sea of Galilee. So the air rises up, and it's a natural amphitheater, and it carries his voice. If you're here speaking, someone down there can't hear you. Your voice is carried backwards. So it's a great spot to be. If you're an orator. I'll read you a little bit of scripture and tell you about it. This is found, Caesarea is found many times in the New Testament. Once in Acts chapter 9, 10, 11. It's also in Acts chapter 23. In Acts chapter 9, and I won't read all of it for you. In Acts chapter 9, Caesarea is the Roman city. Now again, this is a defiled city. For Peter to come here, he's not allowed in this city. So God's stretching him. He's pushing him towards the Gentiles, and he's stretching it. Without this, you would not have the Christian church coming to the Gentiles and the pagans, or us. And so he's stretching Peter, the leader of the church in Jerusalem, and Peter should never have even been here. Matter of fact, he tells Cornelius in Acts chapter 10 that he shouldn't be here. And so he has some of the circumcision with him, which are the Jews, and they're accompanying him, and they're going to actually head out the side door and go back to Jerusalem and squeal on Peter that he's been at the Gentiles, because by the time he gets back there, they're going to question Peter quite a bit. So that's one spot that happens here. Then we know in Acts chapter 23 that Paul, a Roman citizen, is being charged. He's appealing to Rome. He's a freeborn citizen, so they couldn't beat him. The Jews could not beat him. They couldn't touch him. You could not touch a Roman citizen. They had rights like you have rights, human rights. Only Roman citizens. So he appeals to Caesar in Rome. So he comes here, and he comes before the governor and Felix and Felix and and starts to plead his case. The Bible says, and I won't read it in Acts 23, that an orator gets up. It tells us his name. He's an orator. You wouldn't get the full flair of this unless you knew it. The orator gets up, and he is magnanimous. This is somebody that's paid by the Romans to announce. They would do naval battles in here. They'd fill this up with water, and they'd have little ships, and they'd reenact battles. The Romans would. Very prideful. So the orator would get up. In the great year of such and such, we know that Pompey came down, and he would give this massive oration. And he did the exact same thing for Paul. Paul was here on trial. Anytime there was a trial, the governor would come into this area and sit probably up there somewhere, and they would try the accused. And the orator was telling how this guy was accused. So I'm going to read you a little bit of it, just so you could hear it in Acts chapter 23. In Acts 23, Paul would many times be brought into theaters like this whenever he was accused in a city. It says, and Paul, earnestly beholding the council, said, "Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day." And of course, he's giving his explanation of it, but there's a spot here, and it's just one very, very small, obscure verse. Who then, when they came to Caesarea and delivered the epistle to the governor, presented Paul also before him. So Paul's brought before the governor in here. And when the governor had read the letter, he asked of what province he was. And when he understood that he was of Cilicia, "I will hear thee," said he, "when thy accusers are also come," and he commanded him to be kept in Herod's judgment hall. So Paul was here for 2 years. After 5 days, Ananias, the high priest, descended with the elders. So Ananias actually comes here from Jerusalem. And with them a certain orator named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Paul. And when he was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, "Seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness." So here's what happens. Tertullus is paid for by the Sanhedrin, by the Pharisees. They pay an orator. They don't even want to come and accuse them themselves. They want this to be a trial of the century, and they want to see Paul dead. So they pay an orator to give this massive case against Paul. And then eventually Paul gets up and speaks, and then we see some of the governors saying, you almost convinced me to become a Christian. But I want you to see the setting in that. The setting was, this was the best speaker in the land that they paid to be here to accuse Paul. So Paul's oration must have outdone his, and obviously God was there too. So we see this place as a place of judgment. Paul is going to be shipped from here to Rome. This is going to be a starting point for his 3 missionary journeys, as well he told you. And what I wanted to do for you is, I don't know if does somebody want to sing? Anybody want to sing? We need somebody brave. No one wants to sing? Madison, where are you?
Lauren's the brave one.
Pastor, want to sing for us? Would you go down there? Just right down there for us. We're going to head down there in a second, but I want them to hear your voice, Carrie. And you don't have to yell or scream. I just want you to just sing something small, maybe right down over here, right in the center, on the stage. Yep. Now the wind's blocking it for there, so you won't hear it as good, but do that anyway. That'd be great. And then I'll talk to them while you're doing that.
Sing?
Yep, that's all. And we'll listen to you. We're not going to sing. We want to hear your voice. So we'll go from here, and I'm going to give you time, okay? Because I want to get you to be able to have as much time as you can. So let me show you what you do. We'll go out this way. You see those spots on the stage? They would bring wild animals up sometimes. If you see the little niches, they would put the leaders of different provinces. They'd play to their pride, and they put their statues in there. This is marble. This was all marble or limestone, polished limestone. So this was absolutely beautiful at the time, and it had numbers on it. And so you had a seat. So we get that. I mean, 2,000 years later, we're doing the exact same thing. You go to a ballpark, and they'll say, "Well, what's my seat? What's my number? What's my?" And there'll be somebody standing here to show you your seat. How many of you ever been to the ballpark? That's exactly what they did here in everyone. So we borrowed that from the Romans. Now, when we go out, so I can give you some orientation. You can go all the way down towards the water. I'll go there with you, and you can see the hippodrome. When I came here originally, maybe about 15, 20 years ago, no, more than 20 years, 25 years ago. Cheryl, where's my historian? How long ago was it that we came here? 28 years ago. That was not uncovered. They didn't even know there was a hippodrome, so they didn't have half of this place uncovered, so they keep uncovering it. So you'll see Herod's palace, and once that palace is there, we'll let you go and kind of look around. And as you look around, then we want you back on the bus by 1:15, so make sure you can do that. You don't want to be the last one on the bus. And there's restrooms over to the left right before you're ready to come out, so make sure you use those. Now, how many of you heard him? You would. So you have somebody that's far away, pretty far away. You would not be able to do that if you were on a level spot. That's the acoustics of this place. We've taken that over with all kinds of technology, but that's the acoustics of it. Any questions before we go down there? I didn't want to read you all scripture. I want to give you more time to take pictures. And you've been great, by the way. You're the first group I've ever seen come in and not take pictures. So you've been great. But you can come and take them as much as you want, and just at your leisure. Look around. There's lots of, I'll tell you this, and don't tell anybody I said this, and don't say it to Waleed. But if you're looking for little souvenirs, this place is loaded with what's called potsherds. What Herod the Great did is they would take clay pots when they were broken, that once you broke a plate, they were gone. So there's all little pieces. And so just pick up a piece if you can. Be discreet about it. Put it in your pocket. Some of them have lines. I could probably date some of them for you, but you may want to later on go home and write Caesarea Maritima on it, and it'll be a little souvenir for you. So don't be obsessed with it, but especially after you leave down here towards the Hippodrome, you'll see areas that have little potsherds all over the place, okay? Sounds good? All right, let me pray for you. Can I do?
That's amazing.
Come on now, let's go.
Griff. I can deal with this heat.
Swimming pool right down here. It's a bathing and heating facility. So sometimes they'd have these little pylons. When we get to Masada, you'll see the little pylons. And under those pylons, they would put some coal, some fire, some wood, and they would have a vaulted
palacio
superior.
Superior. Esa es la parte
They'd have water, the water would evaporate.
exactamente, si se mueven de aquí un
kind of
segundo.
like a hot bath. So this is his palace right here.
Así era el
This is the upper
palacio,
palace.
de
And
dos
also,
pisos con la pileta en el medio.
they found a mikvah next to this. A mikvah is a Jewish bath. So we know the Jews were here because of that mikvah. Now if you look real close, you'll probably see they covered it with sandbags, but those are actual mosaics from Herod's time. If you can see, that's a mosaic floor. So this place was absolutely gorgeous. You can see that mosaic floor there. You can see a little bit of the ring of the mosaics over in here. But all of this would have had mosaic on it. Most of this is gone. You'll see a little bit of the plaster that's on the inside of one of the buildings, one of the rooms right over here to the right. So as you see, can you still hear me back there? All right, so this is where that swimming pool was, the lower palace. I'm going to also point you to, Dawn, raise your hand for us. Dawn, raise your hand. Dawn and Cynthia, raise your hand for us. Dawn, I want to show them something. Where Dawn is, right to the left-hand side is the Hippodrome. So that Hippodrome is on the left-hand side. It's you can see it from here. That's the Hippodrome. So what I'm going to give you some time. You can take pictures. You can go to the Hippodrome. There's the exit right there, and you can go back to the bus. The restrooms right up at the top. Be on that bus for about a quarter of if you can. If you have any questions tonight, make sure you write down those questions. We'll answer those questions for you. Okay? So this is an amazing spot.
It's just stone.
Yeah, there's pottery. Like, there's a piece right here. And it's all up here. Look up you guys. It's all up here.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3, jump.
White man can't jump.